All right, so this is our first class. What I'm going to cover is, what the class is about. And we're going to hit Latin pronunciation next. That's the important thing because it's hard to talk about Latin grammar and vocabulary if you can't pronounce the words you're memorizing. So we're going to hit that one, the first class. I have the second class prepared, so we'll see how far we get tonight. One thing I want you guys to do, or rather what I'm going to do, is I'm going to use a lot of Latin thrown in, and I want you guys to start kind of absorbing it. We're not going to study it. I mean, well, we'll study some of this stuff eventually, but I want you to kind of remember, work with stock phrases. If you go to French class, what does the teacher teach you to say? Bonjour, right? So we're going to start with your basic hello. I mean, this is part of why we were logging in. Since this is the first time, nobody knew that. So, but if I were to say hello to everybody, I would say salvete discipuli, which basically means hello, students. And you all should say salve magister. Now let's see, whoops. I gotta go take care of the meeting room. Hold on just a second here. Okay, what is going on here? All right, here we go. All right, figures, admit all. I need to drag this over to here. Oh well. Oh well. Anyway. All right. What's going on here? All right. Sorry, I'm going to turn on the navigator. There we go. I'm having technical difficulty. So anyway, I'm going to turn everybody on. Let's see, is there a way for me to unmute everybody? Oh, I got to do it on the other control panel. Man, this is annoying. Oh, well. Still people coming in. And there should be a way to unmute all. All right, I thought there was a way to unmute all. Oh, okay. Where is it? All participants to.
I think
there we go. There we go. I found it. Sorry, you have an incompetent Zoomer here. So let's try again. Salvete discipuli. Hello, students.
Salve magister.
Okay, that actually wasn't too bad, all things considered. Okay, so and what I want to do is to get you to say kind of the stock phrases. This will help with pronunciation, and it will also reinforce vocabulary that you learn later on. So let's see here. Is there a way? Oh man, I got to go over to the other window to mute. What a terrible thing to do. There we go. Mute all. Okay. And the other thing we're going to start with is an opening prayer. Oratio Principium cleverly means starting prayer. I mean, this is ecclesiastical Latin after all. How many people go, let's see. How many people go to the Latin Mass? Lots, some, few. How many don't go? Okay. Well, fake it. I realize we're kind of doing things out of order here, but hey, you got to start somewhere. So let's start with the prayer. I'm going to mute everybody. The best thing to do is read it along with me, okay? So, in nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum. Benedicta tu in mulieribus, et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Iesus. Sancta Maria, Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et in hora mortis nostrae. Amen. Now, hopefully that wasn't too bad for those who haven't done that before. Let's see here. So, what are the course goals? I probably should have stuck this. Whoops, got somebody waiting. There we go. What are the course goals? Really, you know, a lot of you come with different levels of knowledge of ecclesiastical Latin. Some with probably has trouble spelling it in English. Of course, I know I do. And then there's all the way up through people who have written me that, you know, they had it such and such a time. So really what I'm trying to do is raise everybody up a few notches, okay? Some of you will, you know, be able to progress farther than others. But the first thing, whoop, there we go. More admits. Where was I? Oh, anyway, so pronunciation is important. We will add vocabulary, we will add grammar. You have to have grammar in Latin. There's no escaping it. You'll find out why. But the goal is to really increase everybody's appreciation of the church's Latin liturgies, both the private and public devotions, and also some of the culture of the Latin Rite. I don't mean so much, well, you'll see what I mean when we come up with examples on that. So, okay, let's see. Next one, materials required. Well, I think everybody knows this, is I want you to get a copy of Primer of Ecclesiastical Latin. And I have an extra, let me fix that. I have an extra, there we go, quote mark there. Whoop. I have an extra thing there. There we go. It's about $25, depending upon where you buy it. We will be using it. I will be assigning assignments out of it. So you really do need it. You don't need it tonight. It's not a big deal if you don't have it tonight, but you do need to get it later on. And eventually a Latin, English, Latin dictionary. I recommend that you buy an electronic version. I mean, you can use any book you want, not a problem. But I find that the electronic version that I have, which runs on my iPhone, and you can get one for Android, is if I'm at Mass and I run across a word that's I'm not familiar with, it's convenient to just sit there and look it up. So here, I guess I should start my video while I'm at it. There we go. There we go. Now you're done looking at my still there. But anyway, there is a dictionary in the back of the primer, and that'll suffice initially. So you don't have to get that right away. And let's see here. So order of class. We're going to have pretty much the basic same order of class. You know, salutatio, greeting. The Oratio Principium, the opening prayer, starting prayer. And then I want to take a little time to do a cultural moment to describe some of the way Latin was used in the church. You know, I do medieval manuscripts, translate them for one thing. So I may throw up a few medieval manuscripts up there. Maybe take a particular prayer or something, or some particular event that is of related to ecclesiastical Latin. And then we're going to hit the bones of Latin, ossa latinitas. That's going to be about 30 to 45 minutes where we wrestle with vocabulary and culture, although today is all pronunciation again. I do want to take some time at the end for questions and homework and questions on homework. As I said, later on, we'll be assigning some. If you're learning Latin or any language, well, anything, you got to practice. Sorry, there's no way around it. We don't have little tiny pills that you can take and poof, you know, you're suddenly good at something. It would be nice, by the way, but no, we don't have it yet. And then a final prayer. And as I said, you know, class will be about 45 minutes to an hour, depending upon it. Everybody's got things to do and stuff, and so I don't want it to run over. But I will have opportunities to stay a bit after class, depending upon my schedule. So if there are questions you need outside of class, the other one is if you can join the Facebook group, because I will be posting stuff there. It's also a way for us to interact amongst the group during non-class hours. So there's that as well. Okay, next one. So now we're going to do the cultural. And what's relevant here is there are two main flavors of Latin. There's classical and there's ecclesiastical. And I'm going to tell you in a few minutes why you need to be aware of the two. But first, I'm going to define what they are. Classical is the vocabulary and style and the pronunciation of the Romans in the early Republic through the Golden and Silver Ages. So if you're familiar with Latin authors, that would be Cicero, Tacitus, Martial, Caesar, Catullus, folks like that. Ecclesiastical is really the style and pronunciation of Latin from the early Christian era, about the 3rd century on. You know, there are various church fathers such as Augustine, St. Augustine, Aquinas, and really down to the modern era. Latin has not stopped, is not frozen in time. It has continued to expand its, let's see what happened here. I think I'm writing all over these charts. Hold on. Yeah, I don't know what that is. Anyway, Latin has continued to develop down to the modern era. And if you were on the Facebook page, by the way, I put a link to the Wikipedia. It is the Latin version of the Wikipedia. So you can look up such things as space station, spacecraft, electric train, you know, all sorts of things that the Roman didn't have. So, you know, there's a tendency to think of Latin as a dead language and it froze in the 3rd century or the 5th century or the 6th century. That's simply not true. It has continued down to today. And by the way, the Vatican has an enormous dictionary of modern terms. They work diligently to find, you know, to find things, because, you know, they have to be able to write an encyclical on anything. So if you don't have the ability to do that, question? Okay. If you don't have, they don't have the ability to do that, they have to come up with a way or come up with appropriate terms. Let's see what else. Now, the difference between the two are not huge. They are both pronounced like modern English. Whoops, sorry, modern Italian. What am I saying? That's interesting. Where did these lines come from? All right. Anyway, they're both pronounced like modern Italian. There are differences, though. In classical, I don't know if you've heard of the famous phrase here, Veni, Vidi, Vici. Well, Caesar would have said Veni, Vidi, Vici. V's were W's back then. Not a lot of differences. You can generally understand classical Latin pretty well if you've grown up with ecclesiastical pronunciation. In literature, it tends to be very formal and stiff. So something written in classical Latin would be, like something a lawyer would write, or maybe a government document, very, very stiff, very formal. Ecclesiastical Latin, on the other hand, tended to be less formal, and it had a much larger vocabulary. Due to Christianity, we brought in a whole lot of words there, philosophy, the sciences. There's a, if we were to have Cicero show up in our living rooms, we could hold a very good conversation with him. He would think our accent is funny. But there are a bunch of words that he has no idea what they mean because they didn't exist back then. And there are a couple of shifts in grammar. Now, I think I've already, yeah. So again, Latin is not a dead language. It was never frozen in time. The grammar, generally speaking, and the way the words are formed have been stable over the last 2 millennia. But there have been additional words and everything. For example, a computatrum is a computer. Perfectly good Latin word. I work at NASA, so the Statio Spatialis is our space station. As I said, you can go to the. I'm going to send out class notes. You can go to the Wikipedia would be the way to pronounce that. And it is the Wikipedia in Latin. Latinists have come together to produce the equivalent on the Latin side. So, let's see what's next. But back to the differences. The reason I brought this up is there's a great deal of Latin resources out there. When I took up the study, a long time ago, it was very difficult to find anything on the subject. Well, today it's all over the place. I don't know if it's because I can find it better or what, but there's a lot out there. There's a lot out there on the internet, but keep in mind that most are classical. Somebody mentioned Duolingo, which just added Latin to their list of languages that you can study, which is great, but it is classical Latin, so the pronunciation is different. On the other hand, anything you learn there in terms of vocabulary, sentence structure, etc., is fine under ecclesiastical Latin, but the pronunciation is a little bit different. So just be advised of that. And if you go out and buy something like Wheelock or any of the number of other self-study books, they are generally they're generally classical Latin. If they don't say so, they are certainly classical Latin. The ecclesiastical Latin books generally distinguish that. So with that, let's start let's start on pronunciation. What I mean here is it's a continual process of memorization, precision, and smoothness, okay? Don't sweat every little detail. That's not to say don't practice, don't memorize, but at the same time, this is going to be a continual process. We're going to go over this stuff over and over and over again and reinforce it so that it becomes more and more natural. Any questions? Let's see if I can unmute everybody without any horrible, let's see. Okay, where is this? Unmute. Let's see. Oh dear, I think I have to go to the other screen, don't I? All right.
We should be able to unmute ourselves as we wish.
Yeah, okay.
Do we need to pitch in for a dual screen system for you?
No, I'm learning this thing, so give me time. I don't know where these lines came from. My wife says they appeared when I switched on the other screen, so.
I think we have permission to write on the screen, and some people might be marking accidentally, and that's what you're seeing.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, there's a little pin icon down at the corner.
but I
Some other
thought
people
I
might
was the
have
only
that.
one yeah, I see. I thought I was the only one that got to do that. Let me see. See, I know I can draw.
Anarchy.
There we go. All right, here, let me use my eraser. Let's see. Oh, hey, there. Well, that's weird. It sort of goes away. Oh, well. Okay, all right. Huh. Oh, well, we'll figure it out. Let's see. So yeah, do try and practice outside of class. You know, anything that you can do outside of class will reinforce that. And as I said, don't don't get too hung up on some of the minutia, but try and try and absorb what you can and practice over time, and that will improve over time. So with that, locutio, pronunciation. Well, good news is English uses the Roman alphabet. If we were doing this in Russian or Greek, you'd have to learn an entirely new alphabet. So we're not faced with that. Most of the letters are also the same sound. So that's good too. There's even more good news. English is a really weird language in terms of spelling. In Latin, there are no silent letters. Every letter is pronounced. There are no weird diphthong shifts like English have. So rough should, actually, I am going to annotate this. There we go. Yeah, there we go. Rough and through should rhyme, right? Well, they don't. And that's because even though we have that OU in there, as that OU appears in different places in the word, your sound shifts. You don't really have, you have a little bit of that in Latin. I'll get to that in a minute, but nothing that weird. The other thing we have is we have regular or Latin has regular vowels and diphthongs. So there are no, in English, tomb, comb, and bomb. They should rhyme, but they don't. And that's because the sounds change. So we as I said, we do have a few of those in Latin, but nowhere near the number in English. So the good news is we have straightforward syllables, and we have, okay, now it's in my way. Oh, there we go. And straightforward accents. If I were to hand you a random English word and, wrote it down and handed it to you, you would probably, if you'd never seen it before, you might be handicapped as to how to pronounce it, because English has more exceptions than it does, I think, hard rules. So, whoops, I got to turn that off. There we go. So the alphabet, as I said, we got the same alphabet. English, though, has 40 sounds. So English has to steal letters and do weird things to get all the sounds. Classical Latin and Ecclesiastical Latin both have about 24 sounds, give or take. In Classical Latin, there are no J's, K's, V's, or W's. And Y and Z's are really not part of it, but they stole some Greek words and threw those in. Well, Ecclesiastical Latin is similar, but we may have a J and a V, and I'll get into that in a minute. Anyway, Latin, be it classical or ecclesiastical, has no W. There is absolutely no W, and normally there is no K. There are a few words that will have a K as the beginning, but they were borrowed from Greek. And now I see what happens. Every page I switch, it keeps all the wonderful little marks. Oh, okay. I'll have to figure out how to get rid of that. Anyway, as I said, Y and Z are special letters borrowed from Greek. J and V were not in classical Latin, but they got added much later to distinguish between a vowel sound versus a consonant sound. So a consonant I is kind of like our Y sound, and the the consonant U is the same as our V. In ecclesiastical Latin, we will use V's, so you don't have to figure out what the U's are. I's and J's, whether they used a J for the I or not is kind of one of those things that went in and out of style. So most of the extraordinary form stuff you will see is going to be use the J to give you a hand. And that's because it was done in the last, well, actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll talk about that in a second. So Latin consonants are generally hard. There are some exceptions, and for the most part, they are the same in English. So let's take a look at those. Oops, wait a minute. I got to close that. Oh, did I skip? Oh, no. Oh, did vowels next. Sorry. Okay, let's do vowels next because they're pretty short. The difference between a long and a short vowel in Latin is more or less the length. I mean, there are exceptions, but a short A in Latin is an sound, like dina. Long sound is father, so dina, father. It's the same sound, you just kind of stretch it out a little bit. Practically speaking, when you're actually speaking words, you really can't tell that much difference. But it is never a long A sound, like, let's see, what's a long A? Good grief. I can't think of any. Wow. Or like say, for example, there are no long A sounds like that. It's just an sound. E is pretty simple too. Short E is an and a long E is an just a little bit longer. Short I is an and a long I, okay, that one shifts a little bit. That's kind of like an E sound, like in machine. So you may have heard the word domini ending in I there. Then there is an O sound. Short O is as in off, and a long O as in note. U as a short U is a as in put, and a long U is as in a tuba, ooh. So if we go back to the Hail Mary, we now have some idea how to pronounce it. So let me get my, where's my magic pencil here? There it is. Okay. So the A is a long A here. So it is Ave. The Maria, we have a short A and a long I. So Maria. And the accent is in the middle one. Grazia. We'll come to what happens when you have a T there in a moment. And then plena. The E is long, so we have a plena. Okay. Any questions so far? Or have I put you all to sleep?
I have a question about that.
Sure.
So with regards to accent marks in Latin,
Yes.
does that simply denote that that vowel was lengthened?
Stressed.
Stressed. Okay.
So now, yeah, so let's see if I can think of a good. Okay, let's take Maria. There's 3 syllables there. The accent, oh, I didn't put the accent in there, did I? For shame. Okay. The I is accented there. All right, well, I'll go back and fix that here. Yeah, so now, actually hold that question for a few charts, okay? Because there are, well, okay, the word dominus, and I'm basically repeating a chart we're coming to, really ought to be pronounced dominus. The O is short. But nobody at enunciation that at least my ear, will say dominus. They will say dominus. And the reason is the accent is on that first syllable. So English speakers, and actually most Europeans, a lot of Europeans do the same thing. They tend to take a short vowel when it is accented and make it a long vowel, okay? That, by the way, is in the book. If you read the first 4 pages, which is kind of dense, I mean, the author there is trying to get you through a bunch of stuff. He will mention that. So, ideally, if we were doing perfect pronunciation, it would only be a stressed vowel, emphasis, and the vowel length would not change. But in reality, because certain combinations of letters are easier to pronounce than others, it will tend to shift long. Does that answer your question? I realize that's probably a long-winded answer.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Okay,
I had a quick question.
sure.
So when we see Latin written out, like in in the books and such, it's not going to have long and short.
No, it isn't.
Text, right? Okay.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So that
Let me get rid. Let's see, because I guess these all they all okay. Let me go to the next chart. Whoops, I got to put away my little eraser there. Okay. Okay, I don't get to it yet. There's a chart there that basically says, yeah, the good news is pronunciation's not too bad. The good news is the accents, we haven't got to them yet, are not too hard to figure out. The bad news is, yeah, you got to know what are long and short vowels. Usually liturgical books do not mark those. They do mark the accents, but they do not mark the long and short vowels. So what you got to do is either listen to somebody pronounce it, or you got to go to a dictionary and look it up. And that's why I said eventually we're going to get to a Latin dictionary. And I will teach you how to use the Latin dictionary. It is not like, it's close to an English dictionary, but Latin has basic root words, and then you add a bunch of endings to it. So I need to show you how to figure out what the root word is, and then you can go look it up. And then you can go, oh yeah, hey, that's how that's pronounced. But yes, you're going to have to feel your way about it. And as that chart that's coming up said, there's 2 ways: you look it up or you hear somebody speak it. And the best way is to do both. And that's why I want people to repeat things, by the way, is to kind of become accustomed to that. There's a certain flow to Latin. I don't know how to explain it other than there's a certain, I don't want to say musical quality, but there's a certain, what's the word I want? I don't know. The way it flows, maybe. Let me put it that way. Rhythm, thank you. Yes, thank you. Rhythm, that's the word I was looking for. Okay, anything else? Okay. Let's see, okay. So now, the only other tricky one are diphthongs, but they are really easy because they always sound the same way. Diphthongs do not change. Latin has 4, A-E, A-U, and O-E, and U-I. And you're in luck because for a limited time only 2 of them sound the same, and that's the A-E and the O-E. The A-E is a long sound. Let me get my magic pencil out here. It's a long A-E sound, a long E sound, so as in they. Now, do you remember my chart back a couple ways where I showed the vowels? Same sound as a long E. They are identical in ecclesiastical Latin. They're different in classical, by the way, but we get off easy in ecclesiastical Latin. And in fact, in a lot of medieval manuscripts, they didn't use the AE in a lot of places. They just used the E because it was the same sound. So And the OE is also a long E sound, same sound. As I said, in classical, they're different sounds, but in ecclesiastical, they're the same. Then there's the AU, which is a kind of an OU sound, like in house, ow, or how. The OE is, well, we talked about that. It's a long E sound. And then the UI sound, which is kind of like a WI in dwindle. If the Latin word who is qui. And let's see, I'm sure it's in the creed. Yeah, qui ex patre in the creed. So you're going to typically see this UI diphthong in front of with a Q in front of it. So that's pretty easy. So all of them are considered long. So that makes it a little bit easier. Back to the Ave Maria, we have one diphthong, and it was all the way at the end, and that was nostre or nostre, which means hours, or sorry, hour. So there's the diphthong. You'll see a lot of those in a lot of words. They're very common. So let's see now. Let's scroll down. Consonants. Okay. Consonants are pretty close to English by and large. There are certain exceptions. C's and G's. Now, it just so happens that English has the same C and G shift. It's not the same as, well, try that again. Latin has a CG shift and English has a CG shift. They're not the same shift though. So for example, in a C can be hard or soft in English. So I would say cat, that's hard. If I were to talk about a cell, like, you know, body, that's CELL, or jail cell, take your pick. That is an S sound. You don't have that in ecclesiastical Latin. It is a straight C. And it is either hard, like cot, or it is soft as a ch sound, as in church. And the fun thing is, if C is before an A, O, or a U, it is hard. And if it is before one of those E sounds, remember, A, E, E, and O, E all make the same long E sound, and I. It is a soft CH. So for example, over here, católica, those C's are in front of A's, so those are all hard. And, oh, by the way, the same is, well, we'll do G's next too. G's, oh, there we go, sorry. The G is similar. Between A, O, and U, it is a hard sound, like God. And before these E guys and this I, it is a soft sound, gem. And there you have an excellent example of the same shift in English. So how many have heard the hymn that starts out Gaudete? I'm sure a lot of people, you know, they sing it at Annunciation all the time. So there is an example of a hard G, Gaudete. And then the soft ones, Chelum, heaven. And then Gemma, as in gem, jewel. So the other one is an SC sound. And the S and the C are normally hard before the A, O, or U, like Tabasco. But when you go before one of these things, it becomes a sh sound, like as in sheep. And we'll get to some words that there. And then we have the infamous GN. It's not Angus Day, but Agnus Day. And on NG combinations, they kind of mush them all together and it kind of comes out like an NY sound, like in Canyon. And then the last one, which is the one that that TI, I mentioned that we'd get to it. TI, when it's followed by a third vowel, becomes a TSEE sound. So like tsetse fly. So if you remember when we said grazia, I put a TS in the middle of there. So those are most of the consonants. Any questions there?
Golden.
Okay, good. Okay, more consonants. The others, B, D, F, H, L, M, N, P, Q, R, S, V, X, and Z all make similar sounds to English. I don't think you can mess those up, although maybe if you tried. One note is H is always pronounced. So it's history, not history, or herb, not herb. So if you ever saw My Fair Lady, you can practice with your, in Hamford, Herefordshire, and Hartford, hurricanes hardly happen. So all the H's are there, nothing silent. Q, it's the same sound. It's got that hard K sound, but it's almost all, well, I think it always is followed by a U. I can't think of any exceptions. So that's that KW sound, like quick and quiet. R is rolled a bit, similar to Spanish. I know we got some, well, we've got some Spanish surnames out there. I don't know. Anybody speak Spanish?
Yes, sí.
Good. You have an advantage. I suspect this looks very similar to that language in sound and structure, right? Not completely, but I mean pretty similar, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so you have a leg up on us. But anyway, it's rolled a bit. And so really, if we're going to do Maria in English, we want to kind of do a little roll in there and say Maria. If you say it fast enough, it's kind of hard to find, but it's in there. And let's see, S's, it's called an unvoiced S. I had to look that up. What the heck does an unvoiced S sound? That always sounded to me like, well, that means you don't say it, right? Unvoiced. But no, what it means is it's not, the vocal cords aren't used to produce the S. It's always as in set or loose. And it's really not like a Z as in lose. You may see some S's kind of put a little Z sound in there amongst English speakers. Again, it's just because of the way we construct sounds. It's not a big deal. Let's see, what else? Okay, J's. I wanted to, okay. This is more just to kind of FYI. As I said, the J in Latin is what's sometimes called a consonantal I. And in classical Latin, they didn't use a J. So, so for example, the word major in Latin, in ecclesiastical Latin, well, in later Latin text, you'll see it as major with the J. That's pronounced the same way. And yes, that's where we get our word major. One of the cool things about whether you're an English speaker or a Spanish speaker is English borrowed a whopping amount of words over from Latin. And so you will see a lot of familiar words in Latin, and that's good because that means you can check that one off the box. Oh, hey, yeah, I know what that one is. Probably not pronounced the same because, you know, we would say major. If you went around going saying major, they I don't know what they'd think. And okay, and of course, Jesus' name has got the J in it. You will see it in both as a I sound, or rather represented with the letter I and represented with the letter J. It still comes out Jesus, either way. And the reason I want to point this out is you may see texts without it. I work with documents that span well over a millennia, Latin documents. And so you're going to see me switch between the two. I will try and stick with J's, okay? Because that's probably what you're going to see in your missals today. Interestingly enough, in the more recent Latin publications from the Holy See, they have gone back to the more traditional form of using an I. So it's not a big deal, but just be aware of it. It's a, what's the word? Orthography. It's a style of the way that they wrote it. But generally, as I said, it was never in ecclesiastical Latin, but it did come into around the 13th century. Italian humanists decided, we keep messing up our Latin here, and the Italian for that matter. So they started putting in these J's, and that kind of caught on. I don't recall seeing any J's used in any of the manuscripts I've done until about the 17th century. That's where I first start seeing them. And I might add, that's also the invention of printing, roughly, printing was invented before then, but that's where printing really caught on. And so I think printers like that for a whole host of reasons. And so you'll see that increasingly. Late 19th century and early 20th century will always use J, but as I said, the more recent ones will go back to the historically traditional I. So if you're on the Vatican website on one of its Latin encyclicals, just be advised that they're probably going to use it. Pronounced the same, just, I guess it's disguised. Any questions? Okay. The much less troublesome V. The only reason I mentioned that, you're not going to see, okay, in classical Latin, they had no V. They used the U, and it was called the consonantal U. And really old Latin documents, you'll see the U there and you won't see the V. But today, everybody uses, in ecclesiastical Latin, everybody uses the V, even the Nova Vulgata and the Vatican. I just mention it because if you ever pick up anything classical and you see strange looking words, it's because they use the U instead of the V. This makes sense if you pronounce it in classical Latin. So we go back to the Veni Vidi Vici, which in classical Latin is Veni Vidi Vici. Remember, all C's are hard in classical Latin. Now, personally, to me, Veni Vidi Vici, I'm sorry, I always think of Caesar as this powerful male guy, and he's saying Veni Vidi Vici. I mean, okay. But anyway, so you'll see it in ancient documents. And by the way, you will, actually, I take that back. You will see the V in ancient monuments, and that's because chiseling out a V is way easier than a U. And maybe we should make that a class assignment, is to get a hammer and chisel and a stone and see how easy the two are. Feel free. It's not an assignment though. And then of course there's also the Roman numeral 5. They generally use the V there, but it was a fake U back then. So, but V's are still preferred. So, okay, one last word about vowels. You asked me if there was a shift. And yes, sometimes we will take a short vowel and make it long when it becomes accented. So the dominus or dominus, which has, if you look it up in the dictionary, it's a short O. So instead of saying, well, so that's the correct marking, but invariably you will hear everybody in enunciation say Dominus vobiscum. And we will make, since that is accented, we tend to shift the short vowel to the long vowel. Don't sweat the difference. Yeah, we're trying to pronounce ecclesiastical Latin, and certainly some pronunciations are just flat out wrong. But there will be shades. When I say accents, I mean as in New England accent versus a Texas accent versus a Georgia accent. Even in English, you see certain sound shifts, but we can still understand each other. Well, I don't know about New England. Maybe we can't understand them. I don't know. But certainly Texas and Georgia. But we all sing the same songs and we can understand each other in conversation. So a purist may want to stick with Dominus. Fine, go right ahead. But I'm going to say Dominus. So, and if you say it quickly, you generally don't notice the difference. If you're singing it, it's much easier to go with the O because, you know what I'm talking about. At least one of you does. So, any questions there? Have I put everybody to sleep?
Oh,
Just soaking it in.
Okay. I realize there's a lot to take in, or at least it seems like a lot anyway. Okay, syllables. Now we get to syllables. And what do we got? We're almost running out of time, don't we? Let me see, how many more charts do I have? Yeah, let's see if I can squeeze them in here. Okay, syllables. Unlike English, where you don't know where to split the syllables up, and you don't necessarily know where the accents are. Let's see, what's the famous one? Yeah, I put the emphasis on the wrong syllable. Good news is every Latin word has as many syllables as its vowels or diphthongs. So, actually we did get to those. I need to update that. So you already saw the Latin diphthongs. So, as I said, in each Latin, there are no silent letters. Each Latin consonant, vowel, diphthong gets pronounced separately, but you need to get the syllables parsed right. If I take the word grouped, is it grouped or grouped or grouped? We obviously say the first one and we don't say the latter one. So you got to get the syllables right. And that's really pretty easy. Syllables split after vowels followed by a single consonant or vowel. Okay. Very easy. So Maria, well, there's a consonant, single consonant, we split it. There's a single vowel, so we split it. So Maria has 3 syllables. Grazia has 3 syllables. We split it at the AT and we split it at the AI. Okay, so that's pretty easy. Jesus, okay, there's the vowel, there's the consonant, we split it. There's nothing left over for the last S, so it gets stuck on the end there. If there is a double letter, the split is between the 2 letters. So peccata, sins, is pronounced peccata, not peccata or or piccata. Yeah, I guess that piccata would be the last one. So it's real easy to split a Latin word up into syllables with just a minor amount of practice. And again, I said if there's a double letter, you split. So tuum, thy, is pronounced tuum, not like tomb or some single syllable word. And the only one that's just a smidgen tricky is multiple consonants usually split after the first consonant. And this produces a little weirdness for English speakers. We would say sancta. Well, it's not. It's sancta. So if you ever were at the Latin Mass at Annunciation where we sang the Sanctus, that's exactly what we did. Is we said Sanctus, Sancta. So that split's a little weird for English speakers, but again, this is, you know, there aren't any exceptions that I can think of. Same with Benedicta. Benedict, okay, we got two consonants there. We split it in half. And so, and if anything, that makes it easier to pronounce, if you ask me. Okay, what's the next chart? Oh, accents. Accents have very straightforward rules. Not so in English. If the word has two syllables, the accent always falls on the first syllable. Can't get much easier than that. So for example, the word amo, which means I love, is pronounced amo, even though the O is long, but we don't accent it. So it's amo, not amo. Actually, I'm not even sure I can say that right or say it wrong. So accent is always on that first, or stress is always on that first syllable. Where it gets a little trickier is if it has three or more syllables. And there's a very simple rule there too. If the second to last syllable has a long vowel, well, first off, if it has three or more syllables, you never stress the last syllable. That's always wrong, never. What you look at is you look at the second to last syllable, and if it has a long vowel in it, and again, this gets back to, yeah, you may have to go to the dictionary or to listen to somebody pronounce it. If the second to last syllable has a long vowel in it, then that's where the accent or the stress is applied. So if we look up peccata, we find that that first A is long. So it's pronounced peccata, since the A in that second syllable is long. Now, if the second to last syllable is a short vowel, then you go to the third syllable from the end for the stress. So there is nomine, or name. So the E is short, the I is short, the O is long. By the way, I will typically only mark the long vowels. I'll do, for early on, I may mark both long and short, but generally it's a bit of a pain. So when we get a little more comfortable with pronunciation, then I'll just mark, actually, I'll probably even stop marking the long one. Well, I don't know. I'll think about it. But the standard is to mark the long ones, but not the short ones in the dictionary. So anyway, nomine is pronounced nomine because the E is, well, we get rid of the E. I mean, we don't pay any attention to the E. We go to the second vowel, I, that's short. So then we go to the third vowel, and that is where the stress goes. And in this case, that vowel is long. So we say nomine. As I said, dominus or dominus, either way you pronounce it pretty much the same. It does not really rhyme with moose. Don't fall into the habit of saying dominus. It should be more like dominus. The U is short. That's a little hard for us, or at least hard for me. But you want to try and make that vowel short, and it shouldn't, like, you know, this means the Lord, and you really want the name of the Lord rhyming with moose. I don't know. We'll let the theologians decide that, but try and make the, yeah, when you have those US endings, those are generally, well, they are, well, I better be careful. This one is short. Others could be long. So let's see now. Here we go. This is where I talked about it. Bad news. You need to know which vowels are long and short. As I said, you look them up and memorize them, hence the dictionary. or you hear somebody pronounce the word and memorize it. And the best thing really is to do both. I have lots of access, or there's lots of recordings out there to help us with that. And we'll get to that in just a second. Oh, actually, yeah, we're going to get to it now. Any questions up till now? Because we're just about out of time. Okay, I'll go just two more, I think, what, two more charts? Yeah, we'll go two more, well, three more. Okay, so, you know, again, as I said, you either hear it or look it up or hear it or both. But hey, we have the Latin Mass at Annunciation. That is a good place to learn the pronunciation. You know, look at the Latin, listen to what the choir does. Try and sing, you know. If I'm going to sing, you guys can sing. Trust me on that. There's also lots of Gregorian chant recordings out there. I happen to be an Apple user and I have Apple Music, and I have chants for just about every single antiphon and I don't know what else that I can listen to. So I know on Android, well, you got what? Spotify and all the other ones. So seek out some of those chants to help you. There's also YouTube. YouTube has lots of Latin on it, believe it or not. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to send you a link here in a minute that has Pope Benedict XVI, he was still Pope at the time, reciting the Rosary in Latin. So this one is a little bit up you or above you. This has the Bible where they actually have the audio. You can bring up the Vulgate and they will read the Bible to you. Now that's probably way above everybody right now. Your vocabulary is probably not up to it. But this is also a nice place to for example, in the extraordinary form, they have the last gospel, which is the first part of the first chapter of John. So you could go to that and listen to that. So I'm going to, over time, I'm going to post suggestions on things to listen to. And the idea is you have the text in front of you, you recite the text with whoever's doing it. And listen to it as well in order to facilitate your pronunciation. Do we have time for one more Hail Mary? Yeah, let's try it here. And then we really should go because we're into overtime. Here is, I'll tell you what. Well, can everybody stay another 5 minutes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, you twisted my arm.
Of course.
All right, let's try the Ave Maria. Now, this is where I really am going to have to mute everybody. So hold on a second, because if I don't, that is, oh, Madalena, did you have a question? I see you had your hand up. I didn't see that. Okay, nope. All right. All right, let's see. Let me make sure I muted everybody. Whoop, mute all. All right, there. Everybody's muted for the moment. We're going to go through this together. So the accent, the long. Okay, so all together now. Ave Maria, gratia plena. Dominus tecum. Benedicta tu in mulieribus, et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Jesus. Oh, I said I was going to use J's, didn't I? Oh, well. Sancta Maria, Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et in hora mortis nostrae. Amen. Questions? I said it really fast. Too fast? Too slow? No comments?
A little fast.
Too fast.
Too fast? All right, we'll do it one more time.
I was gonna say, let's try it again.
Okay. Yeah. By the way, I gotta tell you as an aside, I started going to Latin masses at Annunciation in the '90s. I want to say about '96, maybe '95. At the time, Bishop Fiorenza finally approved the extraordinary form, the so-called Tridentine Mass. I don't like that term for a bunch of reasons. That might be a topic for our cultural section. But anyway, he approved it. And they had that Mass at 1:30, which, on a Sunday is like, oh man, that's horrible. But hey, you do what you got to do. So the first time I went there, Monsignor, and I think it was a low Mass. I don't recall us singing the creed at the time. Monsignor Galazinski hit the creed. And I felt a bit like the coyote, and he was the roadrunner. Zing! I suppose, and actually Father Felix has gotten to a certain extent to that as well. I guess they've done that Mass so many times that they've got it, really down. So I apologize if I read too fast. I will slow down. I'm not, I'll try very hard to. So let me mute everybody one more time. There we go. All right, there we go. Okay, let's give it a try. Ave Maria, gratia plena. Dominus tecum, benedicta tu in mulieribus. I know that one's a toughie. Mulieribus. But ladies, that's you. It means women. Et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Jesus. Sancta Maria, Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et in hora mortis nostrae. Amen. Better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay,
Thank
good.
you.
Good. And that kind of leads us, I think yes. Okay, homework. I warned you. Oh, by the way, the Latin word for homework is pensum. That also means burden. So if we have any people who are, still in school, they'll go, yeah, I can see that. Okay, in the primer, read pages 1 through 4. It's a little dense, but it'll reinforce what we have here. By the way, okay, I can send these notes out in PDF form. I assume everybody wants a copy, so the thing I should do is make a PDF and just send it to the entire mailing list? Question?
Please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there any nays in that? Okay, that's what I thought. I will do that. So read up on this, review the notes here. As I said, if this is a little overwhelming, do not stress out. We're going to get practice. And believe it or not, it will come, more or less second nature. I mean, if you think about it, when you first learned reading, it was sort of the same process. You had to kind of sound things out. Now, in the case of reading, you had the advantage that you generally knew most of the charts or most of the words ahead of time. In Latin, you're learning the words and the sounds. So, but we'll practice. So, and I encourage you to practice. And so it will improve over time. Okay, let's see here. What else? Oh, yeah. Okay. This is what I was going to show you. This is Benedict the 16th when he was still Benedict the 16th. Well, yeah, I guess he's still Benedict 16th, but he's emeritus. This was before he became emeritus. These are 4 YouTube recordings. He leads the rosary, and it's done similar to the way we do it at Annunciation, in the sense that he does the first part, everybody else does the second part. There are 4 recordings. All 4 are the, well, each one being the mystery. I will warn you, it is 100% Latin. So the mysteries are announced in Latin, everything's in Latin. But go in there and listen to the Hail Mary. That will help you. If you want to say the rosary in Latin, then I have a booklet. Whoops. Okay. This is my webpage. This is my booklet. You can download the booklet and print it or not. You can also access from the webpage. That may or may not be helpful, but listen to that. Listen to the Pope saying the Hail Marys. That's 4 sets of mysteries. That's 200 Hail Marys. And wow, after that, you should be able to say it in your sleep is all I can say. So with that, let us close with the ending prayer. We'll use the same one. I will silence everybody. And actually, everybody is silenced. Oh, that's good. Okay. I will try and speak slowly. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum. Benedicta tu in mulieribus, et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Iesus. Sancta Maria, Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et in hora mortis nostrae. Amen. So class is over. If you want, I'm going to stick on for the next 5 minutes or so. If you got questions, great. I'll be here. Otherwise, have a good night.